Welcome to the TradNurse podcast. This is episode 3. And this evening, I'm having a conversation with my good friend, Suze Seymour. Suze is a massage therapist and a comedian, the funniest person I know. It's true. The reason I'm interviewing her is because she was in a motor vehicle accident, pretty serious motor vehicle accident during the height of COVID. And I want her to share her experience and what it was like being a patient during that time. So, Suze, if you could share a little bit about yourself, but also that leading into that accident and how you ended up in the hospital.
Okay, sure. I live in Vermont. I've been a massage therapist for 35 years. And I've been on this gray earth for 63. And when I had turned 60, I thought I was doing pretty good with life. And that was also about the same time that my car accident happened. So it was 3.5 years ago, actually. And there was a gentleman in a very large truck and a big trailer coming around a blind corner. He was in my lane. And I kept thinking, well, if he just swerved now, like maybe he wouldn't hit me. Maybe I just hit the trailer. But he never turned. And so we had a direct head on collision, both of us going about 50 miles an hour. He was later found, of course, to be texting and didn't have a license, didn't have insurance, all that good stuff. So, but all I can tell you is that when the truck was coming for me, I kept thinking, is this it? Is this the end of my life? Is this how my story ends? It seemed likely that um, I wasn't going to make it, but I did. So I ended up getting transported up to the University of Vermont Hospital, the medical center. And that was quite the trip, I can tell you. I just remember being in a lot of pain. I had 12 broken bones, and that included 9 ribs. And I never lost consciousness. So when I finally got to the hospital, this is what I just remember being in a lot of pain, right? Because I had broken my leg, I had a compound fracture, I had a couple punctures to some organs, the 9 broken ribs, a broken arm. I hit the windshield, fun stuff like that.
Wow.
Um, but when I got to the hospital, what I remember most is I was begging for them to give me something, please give me something for this pain. And, they kept pushing it off because they had to take all their x-rays and things like that. And so when I first entered the hospital, I was on the gurney or on the stretcher, whatever it was, the stretcher.
Yep.
And the lady wanted me to put a mask on before she would push me through the doors. And I had the oxygen tank tubes up my nose.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm not wearing a mask,
You can't breathe.
I'm not wearing a mask. I had 9 broken ribs. So I refused. I refused quite adamantly. And she finally threw the mask down on my chest and she was like, fine. Like I was doing something wrong by insisting not wearing a mask when I have an oxygen tube up my nose. I mean, make it make sense.
Right.
So that was pretty much the beginning of the hospital story.
But when you were arriving at the hospital, it was still the height of COVID, right?
Yeah, it was
Like what was
2022.
20? Okay. And so they wanted you to wear the mask. What about the vaccine?
So they
Like,
never asked me if I had the vaccine, but it was on my records eventually. But they did want me to swab. I remember they wanted me to do the nasal swab, and I remember saying like, "Give it to me," because I didn't want them to touch it. And I just sort of hid my face, you know what I mean? And I,
it's awesome.
I had the presence of mind to do that at least,
Right.
Yeah.
And you test positive? Obviously
No,
not because okay.
no, no.
And
No.
then how did the restrictions, like the visitor policies or the
Oh, yeah.
masking affect your, like, experience while you're having this traumatic,
Yeah. Well, I was in the ICU for 5 days, and that was like 5 days of hell. That's what I remember. And, there was a nurse up there who really didn't like me. I don't know why she didn't like me. She didn't like my family. She was quite a masker. She was very, very masky. And my family was visiting, and there's only two people allowed in the area with you. And so they'd come in and they would like take their mask off. And then at one point, she like came in and saw that we had our masks off in our little cube, and she freaked out. And so there was a lot of screaming and yelling about that. And then if my family didn't comply to continue wearing their masks, she said, "We'll bar you from the hospital." And while they were waiting in the waiting room on the ICU level, they were very far apart from other people, and there was a lot of concerns about my family being, germ ridden or something at that point. And I know a security guard came and spoke to my family when they were out there. Um, so that was all from that nurse who had nothing better to do, I guess, than to report us.
Yeah.
Yeah, for not following all the rules.
Right. And to make your experience miserable.
And she actually did make my experience quite miserable after my first surgery. So it was like day 3. I could barely, function or think. Of course, I was decimated physically, and had a head injury. And I remember her saying that she wanted me to, instead of them giving me the heavy duty drugs, she said, "I'm going to set you up here. So all you have to do is push the button whenever you feel
Like
like
a
you need med."
PCA pump?
Yeah, like when
Yeah.
you need medication. And I said, "Please, I don't want that." And she said, "No, no, it will be better for you." And I said, How can it be? Like I'm passing out for all these, like
Mhm.
I don't want to pay attention. I don't want to have to think about it.
Mhm.
I begged her not to do it. And so I fell asleep, and then I woke up in severe pain because I couldn't do the pump on my own. And so I really think she had it out for me. Uh,
Wait, you told her you didn't want the PCA pump and she gave it to you anyways?
yep. Yep. Yep.
That's
Insisted that was better for me. So,
wow.
yeah. Yeah.
And
I
yet you were
never,
still experiencing pain because you had to keep thinking to push the button.
yeah. It would be
Yeah, yeah.
push a button would be require me to be conscious,
And it
and
must have I mean, I don't they set up the PCA pumps are set up differently. I'm assuming it gave you a little bit every hour?
I have no idea.
You
I
have no
was
idea.
I was
Yeah,
really out to lunch in between 2 surgeries, like
right.
it's hard to know. They had me on Dilaudid. So,
Yeah, it's some strong stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Can you describe a moment when a healthcare worker made a significant difference for you during your hospital stay? Like,
I do. Even though that one nurse that I just described was an unpleasant experience, I have to say I think almost everybody else was awesome. Almost everybody else was really good. And people were so loving and caring in a way that I never, would have imagined. I have never spent any time in the hospital like
right.
this. And specifically, I remember like the people coming in and having to help me with, going to the bathroom, and I had to use the little tray, whatever they put underneath you, whatever
The
it's called.
commode?
The commode, yeah. And I could barely move and I could barely turn over, and I got my arm wrapped up in a thing and my legs weren't working. I was quite a mess. And people were just so kind, and would
Oh, that's
come when that was a really beautiful part, and taking good care of me and keeping me clean, because it's so humiliating when you
yeah,
are unable to clean yourself or take care of
right.
your own needs in that way, your own hygiene needs. So there were some really awesome people that I wish I could remember their names, because I think they really made a difference, and I wish I could tell them myself.
Yeah. And those are the beautiful stories of in nursing. We know that the patient is appreciating everything that we do for them, but we don't need a thank you or anything. It's
Yeah.
part of our job. It does bother me that there are nurses that just put themselves first, that mask situation bothered that nurse, that was on her, it wasn't something that you did, but she made your experience as a patient in that hospital, representing that hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little
Okay.
horrific. Yeah.
Uh, what was the hardest part of recovering? Let's go to your recovery from your accident. Still dealing with the hospital. So you were in ICU, then they downgraded you to like a med surge floor or a rehab floor.
Yeah.
Where the
And
care
then,
is a little different in those situations because
yeah,
there's more patients for every nurse.
I remember after the second surgery and I went to some other floor to rest, that the PT was very specific. She said, as soon as you can stand up from this bed, you'll move on to the next level. And so that was all I could focus on was like, I need to get out of this place. So I
Right.
did. I was able to get up. So I was able to do all of that within 10 days of two major surgeries. And then they sent me to Fanny Allen, which is the rehab
The
hospital up
rehab
here.
place.
So once I got there, it changed because I had my own room, which was great. So I could have
Yep.
my own visitors and we didn't have to worry about masking as much, although they were still very, very um, aggressive about wearing masks. There were ways around that. We pulled the curtain in front of the door so that we at least had 6 seconds before they came in. We put our masks back up. But what I remember most in the rehab hospital is that my physical therapist was very um, she seemed afraid too of a lot of things, and she made me wear my mask during PT. So here I am struggling to breathe. I got the 9 ribs broken still. I'm on a walker and I can barely, get around. I'm still in a wheelchair. I wasn't in a walker, I was in a wheelchair. And she insisted that I wear a mask during all the physical therapy that we had to do. And I could
Did
barely breathe.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense when you're recovering and working so hard at the basic steps of the initial physical therapy, and you're that mask breathing in it.
I'd get hot, sweat would start coming down my face. It was the summer. And so I figured out like my own little routine. My routine was I would get there and I'd be out of breath. And so I'd ask for water and then water would come and then I would drink the water for like, 25 seconds or something without the
Mhm.
mask. Then I'd have to put it on and then I'd have to take another break later. So I figured out a way to
So they obviously tested you before you got into rehab facility.
4 times. I got tested 4 times in, the 8 days that I was a visitor in those places. Yeah.
So you didn't have COVID because you wouldn't have been able to get your therapy. It just doesn't make sense to me. You're getting tested and yet you're still being treated like you have COVID.
The rules didn't make sense, but what I
Yeah.
remember specifically was saying to her that I was really struggling breathing, and she said to me, "Well, you really should have it on even when we're sitting here in your room by yourself in your bed. We should really have it on your face right now while I'm talking to you, but I'm giving you like, this great opportunity not to have your mask. We only have to wear it when we leave."
Wow.
That was her caveat to me, like, "Oh, look how lucky you are."
She's doing you a favor.
That's right. So I knew the power was with her, and the only way I was gonna leave is if I, did what she said and then could escape. That was my that was my goal, was to get out as soon as possible, and they wanted you to leave as soon as possible. Like, the first
Right.
day, they were like, "We're gonna figure out when you're gonna go," and they put a date up, and that's when I left. Yeah.
So you were able to start walking in the 28 days. When you left the hospital, you were able to like stand up, walk a
Yeah.
little bit,
Yeah, walk a little bit with a walker. That's correct.
and then wow.
Yeah. It was my only time in a hospital, and I pray that it's the only time I'm ever gonna be in a hospital because
Yeah.
even though people were great, the draconian rules with masking, it just felt like I was gonna get better once I got home and I was
Yeah.
around my own friends and family and in my own
Yeah.
surroundings, and that was what I focused on.
And when you did get home, because I went and visited you, like, was that, like, shortly after, like,
The next
almost, like, the
morning.
next morning?
Next morning.
Like, you were getting around pretty well, but you were still, like, you had a ways to go. Like,
Yeah.
it was slow, but you were really strong. Like, it's amazing from that time you got home
Yeah.
till I remember you doing karaoke.
Yes, I'm still doing karaoke, Christine. I was up there last night in Montgomery doing it.
No way,
And
really?
yes, I am.
That's awesome.
I'm a
But I remember thinking that the karaoke was almost part of your therapy, like your own designed therapy.
Absolutely. In fact, it's so exciting to me that I hope I have plans to make it more of a future occupation, if you must know, because it really worked so well for me.
'Cause you
And
were moving and you were
moving,
using your breath to
yes,
sing and building confidence.
and the
Oh,
diaphragm was moving, and
yeah.
really, if you think about it, like a mass is just it just suppresses your innate ability to take a deep breath. And when you do, singing, you're actually engaging your diaphragm to take a deep breath. And,
Yeah,
that's like the best therapy ever.
it's brilliant.
It
Yeah,
really
it's
was.
absolutely brilliant,
Thank
and I
you.
do think you could help other people recover
Well,
doing
that's my plan. Catch me in a
I
year. We'll do another show. We'll see
I
what I'm up.
love it. It's the most brilliant idea I've ever heard.
Wow. I feel
I'm
good.
serious because it's creative, and when people are recovering, it's hard for them to open up. They've been dehumiliated. Their bones are
True.
sore. Yeah,
You're not yourself.
no.
And you have to find a way back to yourself. And as wonderful as the doctors and nurses were, my background in muscular therapy and the different alternative healing that I've either received or experienced and or given, I was able to find my way through. But it was ways that I would never have even thought of. For example, the karaoke, but also the tuning forks. I would never have guessed that tuning forks would have allayed the pain of the metal in my leg and the 55 stitches I had in my leg. The nerve endings were spliced and, diced and put back together in some weird way. And I had to relearn how to walk. And so, your nerve endings, I felt like it was like being a child learning how to walk again. I'm at the 3.5 year mark, and I'm just like a 3.5 year old child right now. I have pretty good balance, but every now and then when I hit something, I could, tip a little bit, just like a
Mhm.
3-year-old. So it's been quite interesting. Yeah.
It's quite an amazing journey. Um, how has this experience changed the way you view life, health, and the healthcare system?
Well, bottom line, I think when I think about that question, I think about the very first night that I was in the hospital and, begging for that pain medication. It took them over 3 hours to give me anything.
That's
And
unacceptable.
when they finally did, my family was gathered round, and apparently they gave me fentanyl. Now, unbeknownst to anybody in the room, apparently, including the nurse who must have given it to me, the fentanyl will suppress your respiration, and my
Oh, yeah.
respiration was already quite suppressed. So
Did they have to give you Narcan?
they had to give me Narcan to bring me back
Oh my
because
god.
my family was watching the scale go down, go down, go down, down. Like I didn't flatline, but it just started going down. And unbeknownst to me, though, I was in another planet at that point because all I remember is I started to see the lights, and they weren't white lights, they were yellow lights, and they were holding me, they were pulsating, they were comforting, it was loving. I remember feeling very soothed and held. And then all of a sudden I heard, the nurse, and she was like, "Susan, Susan, come back to us, Susan, come back." And that
Wait,
thing,
so you really did get to that spot of
yeah,
where holy shit,
exactly.
they gave you
So I
too much fentanyl.
They gave me too much fentanyl, and I started to go. That's right. So, of course,
That's ridiculous. That's
I
crazy.
I didn't realize that's what was happening. I mean, not that I'm supposed to pay attention and keep score in this state that I was in, but I remember I remember my body felt like I was in a sarcophagus, like I could feel myself holding myself. And when the nurse was like, "Come back to us, come back to us," I said to her quite clearly, "Oh, that's okay. I was just meditating."
To the gods. You're like,
Because
you almost killed me.
my family never told me that story for like 2 months. I had no idea. So,
Wow.
um, and so to your question, uh, I did not quite die, but I was at the entrance and I felt this great outpouring of love surround me. You know, I felt very held, very safe,
It
very
wasn't
comforted.
scary. It was very
Wasn't scary at
comforting.
all. I was never scared. I wasn't even scared when I thought, is this the moment of my death? When the truck was heading my way. You know, I never was scared. You know, I live a life, I walk very close to God in my life, and I always have. And I felt, you know, it never crossed my mind to be afraid. And I'm still not afraid. So,
That's
um,
powerful.
but I hope that that offers some comfort to those who may be afraid.
Yeah.
There's more out there than meets the eye.
Right. That's an incredible story. Really is.
Well, it continues, right? Because once you get out of the hospital, there's a lot more to getting your life back on track than just, you know, learning how to walk again. By far, one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through.
Okay, so I guess advice would you give to someone who is facing a serious injury or a hospital stay in a time of crisis?
Yeah, try to avoid it.
Yeah. No, I
um,
agree.
Well, you know, stay healthy, so you don't have to get there. But if you have no choice, like I had literally no choice, or you know, I would have absolutely died. Um, you know, because amputation would have been the only option really 100 years ago to amputate my leg. Um, so I'm grateful for modern technology. I have gratitude that I have um, been given these gifts, you know, these blessings to continue walking on earth because I, I think we all take for granted something as simple as walking. It's just
Yeah.
part of who we are. We don't know it any other way until it's missing, and then wow, it's a lot of our lives. But for people who would be faced with the hospital, I would just say that you know, to be as strong as you can be before you go in. Uh, and and really, you know, I remember I asked to go to the library. It was, you know, Fanny Allen is a Catholic hospital, but and so there was a few Bibles hanging out in the library. There weren't many books because no one ever asked to go there anymore. They said
Wow.
hardly anybody was reading physical books. Um, Last thing I wanted to do was touch a phone, and you know, I remember picking up a Bible when I was in there and just thinking, you know, I need my strength. I need to hold on to the bigger picture like I've never held on before, you know, to get through this because it was pretty incredible. And unbeknownst to me, you know, I was literally, uh, it was a crapshoot whether or not I was going to survive, you know,
Right.
because of the punctures to the organs and the other things that could happen just post surgery. You know, there's no
Mhm.
guarantees. So I just say stay as strong as you can, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and that'd be my advice for your listeners every day. You know.
Right. And spirituality and a belief in God or a higher power, whatever it is that gets you through this life is the most important thing. But however, having been an ER nurse, you should have gotten pain medication. You came in with a motor vehicle accident, regardless of your traumas and x-rays, you should have gotten pain medication.
Well,
For sure.
my understanding was that they were testing for alcohol and other drugs, even
That's a
though,
blood test.
yeah, well, I wasn't in the,
Oh, I can't hear you. Did I lose your sound?
say it again.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
we're in
couldn't hear
Vermont. You
you.
know how that goes.
Okay.
I,
So, this story is fascinating. I would love to have you back on to discuss further things in your life,
great.
other things that you're doing, because we could go on forever.
Yeah, I love
But,
to.
we'll end this podcast here. What is your social media? How do people get in touch with you if they want to support you or ask you questions?
Sure. If people want to check in, you could write to me on Facebook. My I have a comedy account that's probably the easiest way to reach me. It's Susan with a Z, Suzan, and then my last name for comedy is Ambrose, Ambrose. You could write to me at Susan Ambrose Comedy. I own Planet Massage here in Vermont, so you could always send me an email to planetmassagevermont@gmail, and I will receive that as well. And I feel that if you haven't heard of me yet, you will soon because I'm a rising star in the universe,
I
and
love it.
only good things are coming my way
And
now.
you're gonna have some are you gonna do some comedy shows
Oh,
soon?
absolutely! I've
Do you
already
have any
started.
lined up that you'd like to plug?
I don't have anything right now for you. I hate to say this, but we have a show coming up in February in Enosburg, and I'm going to be making a comeback this year, 2026, at the Vermont Comedy Club because um, you probably know this, but maybe other people don't. A year after my accident, I tried to go back to the stage, and from the head injury, I just couldn't remember my jokes.
My goodness.
Couldn't remember my jokes.
You
And dementia or us, but I'm just gonna so I started slow this year. I did a couple of shows. This year I did great. And so I feel like I'm back. I'm back
Yeah.
and we'll just keep going stronger. So uh you'll see more of me, I'm sure, as the years go by.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Suze. I will edit this and get it up and send you a link.
Christine, always a pleasure.
You
You love you too. Bye bye.